Welcome back to Boring Reviews.
Boring land.
Oh, just kidding.
Blasphemer! Hello,
right.
Boring Review Nation!
Kind of pointless.
We know all things.
All right, welcome back to Boring Reviews. Nick here.
Gabe, Guy Tone Date.
And me and Gabe are so excited because we just dropped the Drishyam 2013 review 2 days ago. And our audience has responded fairly well for a review for a movie that's 8 years old. And so now we have watched Drishyam 2, and we're excited to talk about it. And, before we get into it, if you're excited to hear it, and you're going to be able to hear some good stuff, go ahead and give us a like. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you're new to Boring Reviews. If you want other movie reviews, we got you. Don't worry. And we got other videos for you as well. So Drishyam 2 comes out in 2021. This was filmed during COVID from September to November of last year, following all the protocols according to the websites. And this was intended for a theatrical release. They knew it wasn't going to happen, so it's on Prime right now. So if you have Prime and you haven't seen it, come on, you got to go check it out. This film is not like a remake by Malayalam. This film is a direct sequel, the resumption, right? The resuming and all that kind of stuff. It stars Mohanlal, it stars Meena, it stars just about everyone that was in the first one that is important in this one, and some newer characters, some newer actors. And before we get into it, let me just say, did a little bit of research. Jeethu Joseph, right? We're going to talk about him a lot because this guy's a genius. Jeethu Joseph has already confirmed that he's got the climax figured out for Drishyam 3, baby. Drishyam 3, he wants about 3 years to be able to marinate, to be able to get this thing taken care of. But don't be surprised if you see Drishyam 3 out there. The Hindi Drishyam 2 already got the rights bought. AJ's coming back for that sequel, baby. That should be coming out in 2021.
Are you serious?
Camille, they already got theirs coming out. And we know about Hilary Swank playing the George Cuddy role in the American version of it. That's the rumor. So it's going to be like a gender swap situation. They're already thinking about the sequel for that one. They haven't even made the first one. Jeethu Joseph, the director. Let's start with him.
Right.
Before I give my thoughts on the movie, this guy, he's some kind of smart, right? He's some kind of genius.
I'll say this. And I'll explain myself later, but there's a method to his madness, okay? And because I love this film so much, and I mean, I'm gonna give that away right now. I'm gonna put him up there, bro, with some of the best directors in American cinema. We're talking about the way he builds suspense, Alfred Hitchcock, where, for a while, he lulls you to sleep. It's almost boring at times, mundane, but he lets you get your guard down, and then he just, what just happened? And then you're at the edge of your seat. He builds it that way. And then the way he writes characters, the way he writes interaction, it to me is like Scorsese, you know what I'm saying? Where he's got that reality to it. And we talked a little bit about this. There's going to be tons of spoilers here. So if you haven't seen the film, go watch the movie, come back, and then watch this review, because I can't talk about this movie without talking about spoilers. But, bro, the way he writes it, we talked about this. We said the average person, okay, cannot walk around and carry a body on them like it's nothing. No, that wears on you. That's something that'll whittle you down. I mentioned how my uncle explained how a lot of times people just turn themselves in like, yeah, I did this. It's on my conscience. Yes, people actually do have a conscience, unless you're a, psychopath or a pathological, liar, or you're, just a cold-blooded killer. If you kill somebody accidentally, hit and run, hurt them by mistake, whatever it may be, that's going to wear on you, man. And he writes that so beautifully. You see how this crime that this family committed in Drishyam, the original, has just worn on them over this 6-year period. And you see how it's affected and impacted their relationship to the point where we now didn't get that original endearing relationship between George Kuti and his wife Ronnie. They've almost drifted apart. You know what I'm saying? He's almost an absentee husband, and you can see how this thing has worn on, bro. The writing is absolutely brilliant, bro, and it really solved some of those issues for me from Drishyam 1, man. I'm so excited. this director has done a masterful job. The only thing is he runs the risk, because I had some pacing issues. He runs this risk of, for instance, a guy like M. Night Shyamalan, right? He's got some great films, but sometimes it gets so long to get to that twist that you just aren't invested anymore. Or, you know what I mean? You're like, what? At the beginning, so it takes a while to get there. Or what's another one where the movies sometimes are confused? It takes a lot. Oh, you know what? He expects you to think. Yes, some directors expect you to think, expect you to, actually pay attention, and they want to carry your attention span. One of my favorite current directors, Christopher Nolan, makes you think, right? You can't just walk into a Christopher Nolan film, be texting on your phone, sipping on a soda, whispering sweet nothings into your girlfriend's ear, and think you're going to follow that movie. It don't happen that way. You may have to watch the movie 2-3 times to make it make sense. And that's how smart this guy's writing is, bro. And that's a lot of high praise from, but I'm telling you, I was that impressed. This may be one of the best sequels. Forget about in India cinema. This may be one of the top 4 or 5 sequels in cinema, period. I'm putting it up there with some of the greatest sequels. I'm talking about where the story actually continues. You know what I'm saying? The Godfather 2. That you know what I mean? It completely seamlessly conveys. It almost becomes one story. You know what I mean? And Terminator 2. It's hard to do a sequel. A lot of times, man, sequels are just like, you don't know. This sequel was absolutely masterful, bro.
Jeethu Joseph, writer, director, okay? And I'm sure he's done some other films. We only know him from Drishyam 2. And again, we just watched the first one a few days ago. Absolutely loved it, but we had seen the Hindi remake, very similar. And so, I'm not going to lie. When I heard Drishyam 2, and I'm like, really? Like when they try to go back to the well, unless it's like a stupid popcorn flick, right? Where it's just action and, King Kong, Godzilla, we're going to see it. I get worried. I get nervous. Like, and again, he might have film after film after film. Only thing I know about him is Drishyam. And I'm thinking like, man, how often do you have a film like that in you as a writer director? That's impressive. That first Drishyam. That's amazing. It's a great movie, great story. I've recommended it to my friends that don't watch Indian films, to several of them. So when you hear he's doing a second one, I'm like, 8 years later, the thing I love about this, I don't know why it took 8 years, but I'm glad it took 8 years, because I'm hoping that he was waiting for the right idea. He was waiting for the right script. That's the way it should be done. It shouldn't be force-fed, and we got to get this out in 2 years so we can take advantage of it. And the funny thing is with the remakes, right? You kind of feel bad for the guy, because this guy spent 8 years probably doing other stuff too. 8 years to ship this out. And they're like, hey, can you get that sequel out so we can remake it, for crying out loud? This guy, what he did with this second movie is extremely impressive. Just like you said, all the praise is warranted. But when I went in to watch this movie today, Gabe had already seen it. And I started watching it last night. I watched like the first hour, and then it was time to go to bed because we had an early cricket stream. And I went to bed thinking like, they're not going to like my review, because I'm not bored, but I'm wondering like, why are we having conversations in a car when he's drinking with his friends? Why is he drinking so much? Why is he so focused on this movie when his dream of opening a movie theater open? Like, what is going on with all of this story that I'm like, this is like not a very good sequel? And I was talking to Gabe about it on the phone, and he's like, dude, just wait. Just watch the rest of the film. And that got me excited. I said, okay. And as soon as I picked up from like minute 1, it was just like intensity built up dramatically, and it didn't stop. At one point, my oldest son came downstairs. Subtitles are going on, and he's drawn in on the last 30, 35 minutes. This film, and like what you're talking about with the writing, what you're talking about with the building, is he took that first hour. Some people were saying 45 minutes. I'm going to say the first hour. He took that first hour of putting this together and putting that together, and this is going to play in. This is going to play in. There's a reason for this. I was wondering, why do we have these neighbors with the domestic dispute? Is that just to kill runtime? No, it wasn't. I mean, we're going to get spoilers and everything, guys. But that's the most amazing thing, is he took his time. Drishyam 1 had at least 3 huge reveals. We were like, what? And I did not expect this to have 3 reveals where I'm like, what? Because it did. And I was just like, no way. I mean, we're going to get into so many different things. But let me just piggyback on that point of yours. And let me start off by saying, you got to watch this movie all the way through. This guy did it again. I mean, he did it. He's going to make himself so much money on these remakes. But it's not just that. It's the art and it's the craft. Is he the best director out there? I don't think so. But is he the best writer-director? There's a case that can be made for this guy. There's a case that can be made for this guy because his writing is just that good, and his buildup is that good. In this film, for those of you who have not seen it, again, spoilers, it takes place about 6 years after the last one. And everyone in the town, they've gotten jealous because George Cuddy has gotten himself a movie theater, right? He sold the rubber farm that his father-in-law gave him as the dowry years later. He bought himself a movie theater. He's made money off it. He could be living out those fat royalties, but he puts into because he wants to make a movie. And we find out at the end what the movie's about, but he wants to make this movie. And he wants to direct it. He wants to learn how to edit. He wants to do the whole – this guy loves movies. I love this guy for loving movies. And so everyone in the town is so jealous about it. They're like, well, you know what? I think he did kill that kid. I think they definitely did. They got something to hide. And so eventually the police starts getting involved, and they start doing an investigation. And then I don't want to give away the reveals. I'm not going to give away the reveals. Gabe, let's not give away any of the big reveals, right? Let's not do it. Let's like hint towards it, but let's just not give away the big reveals. Okay. Because they're just so delicious to watch when you watch. Or maybe we'll just have to do like, hey, guys, we're not joking around now. You definitely can't watch past this point. Okay. But you got the reveals in this. I love the acting from Mohanlal. I got to say, he turned it up a notch in this one from even the last one. Yeah. And this is my last point. I'll take a little break here, let you jump in. But he had this look like in the last hour where he was just kind of like defeated, right? He had like this look on his face. And it reminded me so much. Don't laugh. It reminded me so much of Sylvester Stallone when he makes that same look when he's defeated or when he's down and out as Rocky before he does amazing things. And that's not an insult. You're going to say Sylvester Stallone. I'm telling you, it gave me those vibes. But this guy's got way better acting chops, obviously. This guy carried this film. The spirit of the first one lived in this second one. Man, Gabe, where do you want to go? Because there's so many places we could go.
You know, here's the thing about this film. You know, there's been Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Okay. I love the film. I said, man, this thing's gonna win Oscars, which it did. But you know, there's going to be some people that aren't going to like it because it's not action-packed. It's not one of these heavy CGI films. It's not one of these. It's very character-driven, right? It was really a love letter to Hollywood, but it's one of those where you got to listen to the dialogue and the nuances of the characters, right? The Irishman, a Scorsese film. As soon as I saw it, what did I tell you? Nick, this thing's going to win off. This thing's amazing. 4-hour movie. A lot of people are like, it's so long. There's not a lot of action. It doesn't have to be. This is another one of those films where, for the most part, it's all just, you know, first, there's just a lot of setup, and then there's a lot of payoff, right? A lot of tension built at the time or whatever. But the story, the plot, for all you young writers, this is how you do it. Okay, I'm going to try my best to stay away from spoilers, but we talked about, and the trailer gives this away, where the IG from the first film,
Geetha, right?
Yes, Geetha, right, played by Asha Saratha. Geetha comes back. Of course she was. Okay, we've all heard the old adage, hell have no fury like a woman. Mother, even worse, okay? You took a mother's child, and him, even though he said it vaguely, admitting to them that yes, he had something to do with that disappearance or whatnot, of course they were going to be on it. I think you might have missed because you mentioned that it's because of the town talking or whatever. They never stopped investigating. When this new IG came in or whatever, he had taken over the case, but they knew something was there. They were just waiting for the perfect opportunity.
They did stop from time to time. He had said every time a new IG came in, they would look at it and they would reopen it a little bit. But they had so much legal red tape where they couldn't do an official. we're going to bring you in whenever we want. We're going to interrogate you whenever we want. And obviously I'm just going to say it right now. There's going to be spoilers. We're just going to talk about it free for all. But to my point, they had stopped investigating it. They took a break on it. They weren't constantly bringing them in and bringing it up.
Right. And then for the last 2 years, they bring in people to start investigating them, start infiltrating, start getting this information to the point where they had his house bugged, right? So as I'm thinking like a writer, right? And I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to get him out of this if I'm a writer? Oh, he knew he's being bugged. He's counter surveilling them. I'm thinking about all these ideas like, nah, that would make the movie stupid. He's a smart man, but he's not a genius, whatever. But you realize, and this is what I love about this film, it's a callback to the first film when he told his family, you guys would be okay. Okay.
Nothing will happen.
Nothing will happen to you. Okay. If anything, I got this. This is on me. Nothing's going to happen to you. So even back then he was setting this up. This man has been in a prison for the last 6 years. This man has been waiting to get caught for the last 6 years because he realizes no bad deed or no good deed, I don't know what the saying is, goes unpunished, something to that effect. He knows it's going to come back around. And although he didn't necessarily kill somebody, he admits that, yes, unfortunately, he had to defend his family and send that intruder away so that they never came back. He covered up the crime of his wife and his daughter doing this. And it's not just the fact that he has been in prison, but really, if you think about it, the whole family has. The wife is petrified, and she's a nervous wreck. He's not home because he's out drinking all the time, working on his movie. She's got the neighbor coming in to sleep with her when he's not home because she's afraid to sleep in her own bed. Her daughter is having seizures, and we're talking that was played by epilepsy, right? That is, the daughter's name is Anju. Anju played by
Ansiba Hassan.
Ansiba Hassan. And she has seizures because she's just so traumatized by this. It looks like the only one is the younger sister that's really Anu, who's really just gotten past this, but the rest of the family hasn't. So they've been in a metaphorical prison of sorts. And here's the thing. He also put something in there that was very clever, that about the one guy who ends up being a witness. Let's just say a witness, right? This guy goes to jail for killing his wife's brother, I think it was, in a moment of rage. Comes back out of jail after 6 years. The wife is upset at him, or the ex-wife, because he killed his brother. It reminds me of something I heard, and my uncle says this all the time, man. You should always pray that your family is never involved, or you directly not involved in a crime, a big crime like that, or a murder. Because no matter what happens, right, both sides lose. Both sides lose. And people don't ever think about this, but both sides suffer. If you're the person that commits a murder, you're more than likely going to get caught, and then your family is suffering right along with the person who you murder's family. You know what I'm saying? Both sides suffer. It's nothing but destruction. And you see that in this. He used this character specifically to show how this guy killed his wife's brother. So he killed his own brother-in-law in a moment of rage. But not only did he hurt his own family and his children and his wife, who no longer wants to take him back, but his brother-in-law's family and his brother-in-law's children. Both sides suffer. So realistically, although the IG and her husband have been suffering, not knowing what happened to their son, or knowing at the very minimum that he was killed and because of something he did, and it's their fault because they raised him poorly, guess what? George Kuti and his family have also been suffering. They've been in a prison, and all of them just show the scars. Imagine having to walk around with that. And I think that that's the genius of this film. For literally 6 years, I'm going to get caught. I'm going to get caught. You know what I was thinking the whole time, Nick? Why didn't they get the heck out of Dodge? I would have tipped the heck out of town. I'm out later. Bye. I mean, I'm not going to stay there. The evidence is there. I'm gone. But he knew that it was going to come back around. And I think that was the genius of this film, bro.
I was going to say, because, and you get at the very end when they're doing the rite of passage, the final rites, whatever you want to call it. And you see him looking at what they're doing from across the thing. And you realize that, and that's what the guy says, the new IG, he said, this guy's never going to stop watching us. He's never going to stop having every single thing figured out beforehand. And, that's a big enough prison right there. The thing I loved about this is that this guy, and I've never seen this in a film before. I haven't. Where a guy who does a cover-up, where he doesn't, once he's acquitted, and he wasn't acquitted, but once the police have to stop the investigation, that he doesn't rest, that he doesn't stop and having plan after plan and plan. Because like you said, he assumed he was going to get caught eventually. He assumed they were going to discover the body underneath the police station. And even I was thinking, like, this is kind of far. Like, don't you think eventually they're going to put the piece together on their own? We did just build that police station right when this thing happened, and we're trying to find a body. They didn't come about that way, but the way they came about it was perfectly fine by me. Right. But I love how the writer of this film had the character think about that and the fact that he was on watch at all times. And when you get, and again, huge spoiler, when you get to the end and you find out all the work he had to put into plan B and plan C and plan D, and I've got to become chums with this person, which is why he's doing a lot of drinking. I got to be chums with this person, which is why he's doing a lot of drinking. And I've got to have these things set up. I got to have the bag underneath my tile on my floor, the CCTV cameras. I started thinking about this, even though it wasn't really full out explained. Right. No wonder he had one camera facing the police station the entire time, so he can check on it whenever he wants. Like, oh, there's a lot of commotion going on over there, because you notice he saw it. He saw the commotion. Automatically, he got worried about it because he knew, is this my time? It's just like with your family. You have a plan. Hopefully, we all have a plan for what we're going to do to protect our family when someone comes to our door that we don't want to be at our door, right? What is your plan? What are you going to do to keep them safe? And he had this plan this entire time. The thing I loved was there was several moments, two in particular I can think from the top of my head, but there's several moments where we're going through this movie casually as a viewer, and then all of a sudden, boom, it turns just like that, and you're like, am I seeing what I'm seeing? Yeah. One was the conversation. You're just this rich person's house, like, hey, can you get some food? Yeah, I'll give you some food. You sit down. I didn't even recognize it was girl's boyfriend or whatever. Yeah. And they're like, hey, are you talking to the girl? Is she giving you? And right away, it just goes into like, oh, they're surveilling them, and they're having this guy creep on this girl. Now, it's interesting. They never followed that storyline the rest of the movie. At least I missed. Maybe there's a throwaway line because he was able to get to him through another avenue. But this just shows the IG's relentlessness, how he's got all these bases covered. I want this person covered, that person covered. I want Bug. I want the guys I'll let you talk about in a second, with the ownership or whatever. The second moment was when he's going in and he's saluting people, and like you can tell he's kind of over it. And then he salutes these two people. And who are the two people he salutes? I was like, whoa, what is happening? Who are those people?
Are we giving it away?
Yes.
Dude, the neighbors. I was shocked. I did not see that. The domestic abuse, violence neighbors where, literally George Kuti and his wife Ronnie have called the police and said, yes, we witnessed this. You testified against your own neighbor that, he beats his wife. The neighbors were for 2 years. That's how deep this goes, because they had lived there for 2 years. They've been setting us up for 2 years.
Hoping for a breakthrough of some kind.
Unbelievable writing. Bro, my jaw dropped when that happened. I was like,
absolutely.
And now, from that moment on, bro, I was panicking because I knew that she had already trusted and confided Ronnie had confided in the neighbor. And I'm like, what is going to happen? Oh, they got them. They got them cold. There's bugs in the house. Bro, I was freaking out. The tension that was built, bro. The tension. And it didn't have to be no axe murder running through the house and, kids doing it. No, the tension that was built through just the writing. And the walls are closing in. And at one point, Nick, I said, there's no way he's out of this. If they get this...
I was going to ask you, did you think at one point that he was done? Because I honestly thought he was done. I thought he was done.
I figured if the writer somehow makes him MacGyver, okay, makes him, Mary Sue, and somehow he Mary Sue's his way out of this, I said, I'm done. I'm not smart enough to figure out how to Mary Sue my way out of this, okay? So I was doubting the director, like, please don't do it. Just let him go down. We've seen those kind of stories before, and I thought that's where it was going to head, where, you know what? Unfortunately, a crime was committed. Somebody has to pay for it. Somebody has to go down for it. He goes to jail. He takes the blame for his whole family, which was part of his plan. I would have been okay with that ending. But when he twisted it over again, I was like, holy cow, you got to.
And let's talk about that, because you're right. I would have been okay with that. I would have like this sucked. But they even mention it when we get to the part later on about how he wasn't happy with that ending either in, the movie he's making. But before we get there, right? So when he realizes that they found the body, and he's like, he's confident the whole time, they're not going to find it. And even if they do, you're going to be good. I'm thinking to myself, he's a little too overconfident, right? He's a little too big for his britches, and he's going to get caught because he was so sure by that. And then when he finds out, I got to go. Like, hey, you want to go to the movies today, Dad? No, I got to go. I got to take care of something. He was freaking out, right? He goes there, looks at the cameras. He's like, oh, no. People are telling him, like, hey, they found where they buried that body. And so when I saw that, I was like, his arrogance got the better of him. Right. You had 6 years of freedom. Now you're screwed. But the thing that's so awesome is now when you think about it after you've watched the movie, you realize that for him, as long as they didn't find the body, he knew he was super good. Like, there was no chance. But once they found the body, then he knew he had only one chance to make sure that he still had another card up his sleeve, so to speak. Right. And you can tell he was stressing because, okay, I got to play this. I've been preparing for this for years. I got to play this card. And I, just like you, I thought, okay, he's done. He's toast. He's going to take the fall. They're not going to believe him. They're going to go after the whole family that they were talking about. But I was like, he's done. Now, the thing that's so brilliant, again, that's back to Jeethu Joseph, right? The thing that's so brilliant is he has this whole movie, and you find out because the producer guy, he goes to the cops. He's like I promise, I thought it was just a movie. And he gives away the entire story for the most part. He does it so beautifully, piece by piece. And as the audience will watch the movie, our eyes are like this, right? And he's talking about how, this is very familiar. And in the movie, the same kind of similar thing happened. A few things are different. And he wasn't happy with the original climax where the guy turns himself in. So he became friends with a DNA expert guy. He became friends with the guy at the cemetery, right? Who someone had a similar injury. Like, they talk about the whole plan, and IG, you can just like, what's going on? And not just that, but then he's got a book that he said was for copyright, but he had a book published on the whole story so they can get the copyright. But then there's so much. I'll let you kind of unwrap that for our audience because that's a huge spoiler. But when that's happening, I was just like, no, yes. It was like watching a sporting event, for crying out loud. This was amazing buildup, and that's what happens in that first hour of the movie to get that amazing buildup. Right. I cannot remember, honestly, too many films where you get that kind of payoff, that kind of satisfaction a second time around. The closest thing I can think of is Endgame, and they had 23 films to build that up. This guy had 2 hours, 33 minutes.
Bro, I'm telling you, one of the greatest sequels, top 5. Forget about Indian content or American content. Top 5. It was just masterful writing. And here's the thing. It's so smart because, like I said, he put so many things in that until the end don't pay off. Like the witness, right? Well, like I said, the brother that ended up actually being a witness to what happened that night. And you know what? From this point on, guys, spoiler alert.
I've already given up on that task. Me as myself.
So the night that George Cootie buries the body, there's a witness. It just so happens the witness saw him go in there, not with a body, but come out with a shovel. Enough that would have given the cops some inkling, oh, this is where the body is. The only reason he never came forward because the dude was in jail because he himself had just killed his wife's brother, okay? And his wife, when he comes out of jail, wants nothing to do with it. The guy said, look, I made a mistake. Now my family is suffering. My kids are suffering. My wife split up with me. His family is suffering, which is my wife and his kids. So both families are torn apart by this one act of murder. And that shows it's a duality, right? This is a smaller story of the bigger story, which we got two families, right? The Geethu's family, which is her husband, and her dead son, obviously, who suffered, and also George Cootie's family, who has suffered, because they're not living it up, okay? Other than Anu, everybody is still traumatized and paralyzed by this. So we're thinking to ourselves, man, George Cootie has gotten full of himself because he's out drinking or whatever. We find out the only reason he's drinking is because he's befriending a guy from like the morgue so that he can, you know, when and if the time comes that he needs to get in there and switch the remains because of DNA, he knows that the skeletal remains are gonna be examined, then he's able to do so. He's befriending the guy that is a grave digger. Why? Drinking with him because he needs him to dig up a body from him of a guy that dies with the exact same injury. In fact, they show how from the moment the original Drishyam ended, he never stopped planning. He knew that moment that after this is going to come back and I've got a plan. He's been a prisoner to this plan, which to his family's detriment, it has split and soured the relationship with his wife. His wife's like, you know, Drish Cuddy, when he's talking to the she's talking to the neighbor, doesn't understand me. He just drinks. He doesn't listen to my problems. Then she's talking to her friend. She's like, for him, everything is easy. For me, you could see her physical pain. Let me just say, Ronnie did she did a great job the first time. This time, you could feel her pain as Meena. Meena is her real name. I was even calling her Ronnie. Meena did a fabulous job. You could feel her pain. She's breaking down. I thought at one point she was ready to just go and confess. Like I mentioned to you before, some people break. You can't have that on you. You know what I'm saying? And the daughter as well. So George Cuddy's been setting this up all along, and everything down to the book where, okay, this book is proof where I'm gonna have it published so that when you guys come after me, this is where you got the idea from, which throws that's my alibi, and it's in court. It's gonna throw your kid. He thought about everything, and here's the thing: even at the end, he knows they're gonna continue coming. He'll never stop thinking, but that's a lifetime prison, and I think that's what they meant. Not by he has to carry this guilt. Yes, he'll carry the guilt, which is tough. But could you imagine always thinking they're coming for me? They're coming for me. And is that neighbor who just moved in undercover secret police? You know, is this person that's going to be a business partner with me also trying to set me up? What angle are they coming at me at? And that is, bro, a lifetime of having to look over your shoulder. You know what I'm saying? A lifetime of not being able to trust. A lifetime of my family unit being broken and no longer having that happy-go-lucky sense that they had in the first Drishyam film to this one, where it's all tense and you can tell that, you know, outside of Anu, nobody's okay. Bro, the writing was just unbelievable, bro. Flawless. Again, pacing issues, and we'll talk about that towards the end of the review. A couple things I did not like, but man, the payoffs were amazing.
The character development, like you touched on, was very impressive because you can sit there and say, you know, Meena's character, Ronnie, and, you know, Anju's character, like, they just got to, like, calm down. Like, the husband and the dad's not too worried about it. Well, let's think about that. The dad, right? He had this whole plan. Like, he had everything planned out. Also, he was distracting himself as much as he could with his job, with his movie. He was out there trying to chum up these different people. So he had those relationships that were tight and they were relevant. And he was keeping himself so busy that he didn't really have time like they were, where they're sitting at home and they're looking over their shoulder and they hear a siren and she's having nightmares constantly. The younger sister, she's out doing her whole thing. I still think she did a fantastic job. And it makes sense that she's not too worried about it because she wasn't involved in the murder or the cover-up. She just saw them burying something and all that. I mean, the character development was fantastic. The new IG, he did a great job, and he did everything he could to try to figure this thing out. Even when, like, the guys are drinking their drink behind when they're digging up the ground or whatever, I thought they were going to, you know, give the information to George Cuddy. No, it was just the town gossip and this or that's going on. I mean, there's so many components on this movie that make it seem like it could actually happen. That's very, very impressive. Let me start off with anything that I disliked. First of all, I didn't like that I had to wait an hour long to be able to really get some of the good stuff, because I think in a world that we live in with short attention spans, that may turn some people off. But as someone that loves writing, as someone that loves buildup, it was completely worth it by the end. Right. Any other complaint? I'm trying to think. I love how the dad of Varun was very compassionate even after the fact. I know people like that, so I had no problem with that. The mom, this is the thing. Geethu, we didn't get a lot of her in this movie, and it makes sense. There wasn't really a lot for her to do until near the end. And that's not really a problem with the movie, but I have a problem with the character just a little bit. She becomes a little more of a villain in this movie because she knows. She has to know the whole story because the new IG is telling the whole story to his guys when he's trying to get everything figured out. And he says Varun went there. He had the naked pictures, a photo. He was trying to proposition. They hit him in the head and he died or whatever. She knows what kind of a creep he was, but all she worries about is just vengeance. And it might be to that end game of getting those remains so that she can do that ceremony like the dad talked to Mohanlal about earlier on. But she becomes that villain because she becomes that same person where she smacks around Mohanlal and she's yelling, I don't care if you're having a seizure. You're faking. It's all drama. Give me the information I want. Give it to me right now. It's by any means necessary that these people pay for her son's death. Who cares that this guy came as an unwanted guest? That this guy came and he propositioned the mom and the daughter. This guy came and she didn't matter. All she wanted was what she wanted. And to me, she came off a little bit as a villain, a little more than I want her to. So it was kind of an issue. I can tell you have a problem with that, but let me just finish real quick. I can see with your little pen right there. But some other issues I had, they're not really too major, were, and again, most of these issues, they get cleared up at the end of the movie, but I'm thinking like, okay, how is he going to get out of this situation? He can't think on his feet that quickly like he did in the first movie. Right. And then again, you find out that he figured all that out and he had a plan beforehand. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't have too many problems with this movie besides a slow beginning. I really, really enjoyed this film.
I really agree with you with the pacing, right? Because you've got to you run the risk of losing your audience in that first hour. However, the audience members that stay, the payoff is so huge that at the end, you don't care what happened that first hour, and you even appreciate it. Like, oh, I can go get all those little Easter eggs. I will compare it. Look at the Vision of the Scarlet Witch, right? The very first two, or not Vision of the Scarlet Witch, that was a comic book. WandaVision, right? The very first two episodes, everybody was like, "This sucks. What's going on?" Whatever. First three, and then as you start getting into it, oh, okay, that's why that's important. But you run the risk of, like you said, losing with our short attention span. Losing people like that. But if you go back and watch films like Psycho, right, with Alfred Hitchcock, same thing, bro. It takes a while to get where you need to go, right? And it takes a while to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, but in Psycho, you get that murder early on.
You get the
scene that happens pretty early on.
You get the murder, but then the whole time is just about the suspense building or whatever. Again, it's a movie where not a lot of action happens outside of that at the beginning. Same thing with like Citizen Kane. It takes a while to get there. My point was, I think it's by design because he had to hear it as a director. We all hear criticism. Listen, I get 1 or 2 bad comments in the comments or whatever section, and I'm like, what? My hair? I'm going bald? What? I'm looking a little chunky. Let me hit the gym. You know what I mean? Like, of course, we're all vain in that nature where you get any criticism, and of course you're going to take it personally. You don't think he heard the first time and said, what, the first 45 minutes are slow? Well, the first hour is going to be slow in the next one. You take it and you'll like it. That's what he said, all right? So obviously he heard it. It's by design. So for me, I don't have a problem with that. I hear what you're saying, and you're right, but I think it's by design. Now, when it comes to the Geethu character, this is where I disagree with you.
There's the pin again. I knew you were disagreeing. I wrote it down because I wanted to, maybe because I know people this way and I've been in this world again with family and law enforcement, but I don't know if you've ever been to a jail or prison on visiting day. Bruh, it ain't empty. Every single one of those dudes in there has people that come see them, whether they're in for murder, whether they're in for other despicable arson, even the pedophiles got people that come see him. All right. The best way my uncle put it, I remember watching this. Have you ever seen that documentary with Jeffrey Dahmer's parents? Bro, even Jeffrey Dahmer had parents. All right. And those parents were like, yeah, I can't believe Jeffrey did this. They had no illusion that their son was innocent, but it was still their son. You know what I mean, bro? It was still
felt for that mother. Like, I think to myself, what mistakes did I make? Should I have gotten therapy? Should I have got him help? And watching that, bro, Geeta is a parent that no matter what her child did, it doesn't justify murder. It doesn't justify putting them in the ground. Yeah, he was going to try to get some, explicit adult favors from these ladies, blackmail them. What he did was wrong. But two wrongs don't make a right in her eyes. And what you did does not justify, what he did does not justify taking his life. You buried my loved one. All right. And listen, you can tell me how wrong he is later. But right now, at this case in point, you took him. I want retribution. So I feel that I believe that character simply because I know, listen, you ever wonder how these guys that are in jail still got years later come out, got people with them? They went to prison for horrific things. They get married while they're in jail, but they still got loved ones, man. And those people, regardless, don't see them for those individual slights and crimes. They see them for a brother, a sister, a child, a father. You know what I'm saying? A fiance. And I thought that that's what made this more realistic. And my last point is it calls back to the end. That's why this director is so smart. It calls back to the end. He foreshadowed this. I wonder if he had or has already planned this whole thing out. Because at the end, the very last scene in Drishyam 1, he's sitting with Meena, right? And Meena says to him, she was a very powerful woman. She's IG. She resigned. Remember that she resigned in the paper. But I feel bad because we did this to her. We hurt her family and we hold responsibility for that. And he says, Meena, that's because you're a good person. I keep calling her by her name, Meena. Ronnie, that's because you're a good person, he tells her. But if the shoe was on the other foot, do you think she would not do everything to protect her son? Like foreshadowing that, look, the same way we're protecting our kids, she's going to protect hers. I know she's coming back, which makes so much sense that now he's been preparing all this time. But that one conversation came to pay it off so much. So I bought that. And I'm telling you, don't be surprised if he has already written the third part, Nick. And like you said, he's just letting it marinate. You know what I'm saying? Because it takes a lot of foreshadowing, a lot of thinking to not just bridge an entire movie like that, but to bridge two films that way, if that makes sense.
But I still hold true to my opinion. It's just my opinion. I still hold true to my opinion because I believe that she's so angry and she's so villainous about that because she doesn't want to admit the fact that she contributed big time to the way that he was, where he felt like he can go into someone else's house and do whatever he wants. And this guy did it because he thought, who's raising him that way, right? Because the mom, she was doing whatever she wanted to be able to get her case. I just felt like we didn't get a lot. And I loved her in the first movie. We didn't get a lot of her in this movie for her just to come out 100% and just be 100% one-sided. All the other characters are fully rounded. And she basically said, I don't care about anything else. All I care about is justice, as if she's masking the fact that I have a big part to blame for the kind of person he was. She doesn't want to even think about the fact that these guys obviously are not cold-blooded killers. Right. That obviously it had to be a self-defense situation because the guy's over there for a reason to get what he wants. She didn't even want to consider that. She wanted them to go down because she was just so embarrassed at how she raised her kid. And I felt like it was just a little too one-sided, one note for her to come in like an hour or two and to be guns a-blazing and whatnot. And then again, with her to be so fired up about that, and then for a second time in back-to-back movies for her just to say, okay. I mean, she got the remains. She got a letter, for crying out loud. She could have taken that to the authorities and said, see, he knows where the body is. He sent me that. That's the thing that I was kind of confused about. Like, it didn't fit with that character. That's my point.
Right. Well, two things. When you talked about that there, because I said to myself, what is he doing? Why? Give him this guy's watched a lot of movies, and obviously he's befriended forensic scientist, right? Because did you notice? Yeah, he gave him the body after he had bleached him with that there is no DNA left on that cousin. All right. Had good luck trying to prove that's his DNA. You ain't going to be able to. So that's why he was comfortable giving it back to her, because you can't prove that's my writing. You can't even prove that's his bones. I know I got the DNA off of it. I'm good from that standpoint. But you're right. She did take it too far. For me, again, it was just the pacing I had a little bit of an issue with. I think you could have cut an entire, and I think that they did it just to get Anu in the film, but you didn't need the boyfriend spying on her, the sleepover at night. That's an easy way to cut 20, 30 minutes out of this movie, right? Even from the whole kids coming to the house to cook or whatever. There was no, in my opinion, there was no purpose in that other than to later have the boyfriend's actually been spying on her, or the boy that she likes been spying on her. But did we really need that when we find out all the other people that have been spying on them or whatever? You know what I'm saying? That to me, like you said, it was a little the idea and it was a little it didn't finish, right? Where did it come? Okay, maybe that's what part 3 is going to be. Who knows? Maybe part 3 will also, okay, we still got them, Gabe. We're going to close that.
See, I don't really want a part 3 because this family's gone through it, man. I mean, they've gone through it so many different times, for crying out loud.
But that's the point, bro. They're never going to stop going through it. You've made a mortal enemy, bro. You don't take somebody's child and think we're just going to hug and say kumbaya and it's all good, bro. You know what I'm saying? Especially that family, and in her opinion, has never suffered or been held, there's no justice there. You can't, you know what I mean? Like, think about it. There was no justice from the legal system. She believes in the law because she was in IG. That didn't happen. Yes, she got to lay her son to rest, but after the mourning leaves, she's still going to want some retribution. I'm telling you, but what did the judge say?
What did the judge say? He's like, yeah, that happens sometimes. We lose some cases. It's the legal system. It is what it is. It is. My point is, and I love the movies. Keep bringing the movies because they're fantastic. But in this vein, like, how many times are they going to continue to go after this guy that constantly outsmarts you and constantly gets away with it? And now the body's gone. You didn't, even when you found the body, you didn't connect him to the body. You had an eyewitness with a shovel, right? In the court of law, you can still argue, okay, I don't know what he was doing there, but it wasn't him. So, I mean, they keep coming. They keep spending resources. 2 years undercover. I mean, everything under the sun. Like, man, that's all I'm trying to say.
They are the Capulets and the Montagues. All right, they're lifelong enemies now. This is never going to end. That was kind of the point. He even said, "You know what? Give us a break for now. Leave us alone for now." But he knows they're never going to stop coming, and he's never going to stop preparing. And it's a war that just won't end. And I think that that's the whole point of this film. That with every murder, with every crime this way, there's victims on both sides, because both these families are scarred forever. Okay, outside of Anu, Andrew has all the seizures, right? They may not even be able to marry her off. The mom's a nervous wreck. They'll never be able to trust anyone. This guy, all he thinks about 24/7, Nick, for the last 6 years is, okay, how do I set this up? Because I know I'm going to get caught. Are they going to keep coming after me? How do I protect myself? How do I cover all the angles? And you can never cover all the angles. Imagine having to think about, that is the prison they were talking about. It's a prison of always having to worry about that knock on the door. You know what I'm saying? And on the other side, she's never moved on. She had to resign from being IG. Like you said, they've spent tons of resources to put people undercover. They paid the guy $100,000 or 100 lakh cash, the eyewitness, right? That's money that came out of their pocket. So they haven't moved on. Both these families are scarred because of this one event. And I think that was kind of the point of the two films put together.
Well, yeah, obviously, yeah. Definitely not disagreeing with that. It's a long review here. Let's go ahead and get our grades out there. You, Gabe, you go first with your grade.
Bro, I tell you what, first one that I saw, Drishyam, the Hindi version, I gave it a B because I hated the punk kid, and there were some things that weren't paid off for me at the end. I felt like the story wasn't closed. I gave an A- to the other story, the original Drishyam, because I thought it was a little bit better done, and the acting by Mohanlal and Meena, that organic relationship was just amazing. This is some of the best bro, A+, no questions asked. This is one of those films combined that should be taught in film school. Like, this is how you write a story. For all those people in Hollywood, okay, I'm throwing out names under the bus right now. Michael Bay, that doesn't know what an actual plot is, okay? Doesn't know how to write a story. This is how you write a story. The story alone is, I got to give it an A+, bro. Oh my gosh, unbelievable writing.
Michael Bay is laughing all the way to the bank. I'm just saying. Man, you threw him under the bus. This guy is one of the most successful writers of all time.
He's horrible. All he does is action stuff, bro. All he does is action stuff.
I'm
Give me
not
some
saying
plot.
he's Scorsese, but I'm just saying the guy has been quite successful. Anyways, I'm giving this grade an A+. Super, super easy. I gave the other one an A+. I'm surprised you gave the first one a B- to tell you the truth, because of a punk kid. But that is what it is. It's all cool. I'm giving this an A+. Fantastic movie. Guys, we talked a lot about pacing. Maybe we got to work on ourselves because this is a very long review. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let us know in the comment section what you think. And until Drishyam 3.
We know all things.